Hey everybody, welcome to Sound Bombing. I created this show for people who want to experience a radical, life-changing journey through the sounds of my diverse guests. I hope that each sound you hear on this show will strengthen your faith, encourage your dreams, and challenge you to awaken the greatness within you.
Drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We come to drop the bomb. Drop the bomb.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
LaMarr, Darnell Shields.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of the day it is. Welcome to one of the best hours in podcasting. Yes, I will say it again, one of the best hours, because you are joining me today in the BalmShelter. I am your host, Dr. LaMarr Darnell Shields, and welcome to my channel. I am the creator of Sound Bombing. And my goal with this show is to introduce you to people with ideas that will help you unlock your potential. And today is no different. Before we get into our guest who's sitting there patiently waiting, you all know what time it is. My folks who have been joining us for a very long time, we always start out with our 3 breaths. So I want to encourage you to find a comfortable position, put your hands on your lap, palms facing up. For our new people, we do this all the time because we like to clear the space. We like to bring positive energy and positive vibes into the BalmShelter, into this space. So I would encourage you, find a comfortable position, hands on your lap, palms facing up, roll your shoulders back. I'm going to start with our first breath. We're going to inhale, hold it for 3 seconds. Exhale. 2 more times. Now we're going to go a little deeper for 5 seconds. Inhale. Exhale. Now we're going to go much deeper with 10 seconds. Inhale. Hold it. Exhale. And what is that? We call that the breath of life. I am so honored that you decided to hang out with your boy, Dr. LaMarr Darnell Shields, in the studio. And today we are so excited for our guests. But before we get started, we're hoping that you're staying safe, that you're cleaning your hands, you're washing everything, you're eating those foods that bring up your immune system. You're also checking on our elders because they need us during this pandemic. And we're asking you to stay physically distanced from those individuals. And so again, thank you for joining me. If you were here last week, we had the great Chris Holmes on, and Chris called in from St. Louis. She is a recruiter. She talked about walking into your gifts and also igniting your passion for your profession, also for your life. And she gave us some really, really good strategies on how to build your resume, how to work with people who are challenging, but then also how to remain balanced throughout this pandemic. And today is no different. So improving customer service or improving customer service experience is often a top business priority. What about employee experience? Well, there's a direct correlation between employee engagement and success in customer experience. And you know, me as a researcher, and I'm always studying, and research shows that companies that excel at customer service experience have had 1.5 times as many engaged employees as a customer experience laggards do. And Gallup has found that a staggering 87% of employees worldwide are not engaged, but companies with highly engaged workforce outperform their peers by a whopping 147% in earnings per share. Well, today we'll hear from Greg Kihlström, who will talk to us about how a company can attend to its employees' experience. You know, that's important with the same level of discipline and intention that it does to its customer service, and how those results can be seen across the board. Who am I talking about? Thanks for asking. Greg became and is currently CEO and co-founder of CareerGig after his digital experience agency, Carousel 30, was acquired in 2017. He has worked with some of the world's top brands, including Sound Bombing, no, I'm just playing, Coca-Cola, Dell, FedEx, GEICO, Marriott International, MTV, Starbucks, Toyota, VMware, and he is currently serves on the University of Richmond's CX Advisory Board. Greg's newest book, The Center of Experience, talks about how customer employee experience can be operationalized into a cohesive brand experience. I am so honored that Greg is joining us in the BalmShelter because we know he has a busy schedule helping people work their businesses and create customer service all over the country. But he is here with us today in the BalmShelter. Greg, welcome to Sound Bombing. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to talking with you.
Hey, let our audience know where you're calling in from, and then how are you doing with this pandemic?
Sure. So I'm calling from just outside Washington, D.C. So I'm in Alexandria, Virginia. Yeah, it's been it's been certainly an interesting time. I mean, I started CareerGig during the pandemic, so a lot of people think I'm crazy for starting a new company during a time like this, but I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more. But it really, it ended up being the best time to do something like this and actually be able to help a lot of people out that are looking for work and, furloughed, laid off, all of those kinds of things. But yeah, so, I would say we're CareerGig, we're a dispersed company. We've got people all over the country working. So, working from home, working remotely was already kind of what we were planning on doing. So, we're trying to make the most of what is a very difficult time for a lot of people.
And it is a very difficult time. I want to start right there with negative talk, because you just said right there that when you told people in your circle, because we have several circles, your inner circle, outer circle, they said to you, Greg, you are crazy for starting a business in a pandemic. How do you deal with negative folks that are in your space who sometimes these people have come from the same bloodline, same last name, maybe closer to you than others? How do you deal with those naysayers who are saying things to you, not only just to you, but to other people who are creators like you are and who are constantly looking to create new concepts regardless of a pandemic or any other atrocity that exists in the world? What are some of your strategies that you used?
Yeah, I mean, I personally use that as a sort of as a way to ante up the odds, so to speak. So in other words, I take that as a challenge, and I like a challenge. I mean, I challenge myself a lot, but sometimes having and most of it was good-natured ribbing, so to speak. But I will say with my last company, Carousel 30, we had our largest year of growth in 2009, and so very tough time. The phone didn't ring the first 3 months of that year, but we were smart. We waited it out. We waited out our competitors, many of which fell by the wayside, and we ended up growing more year over year than any other year in 14 years of that company's existence. And so I believe there's opportunity in anything, and I think with this latest, it was just it is the right opportunity for this time. And I think connecting people that are either out of work or looking for work with jobs and benefits and all those kinds of things, which is what we do. I think if we didn't launch this summer, we would have missed the boat, so to speak, on this opportunity.
So Greg, where does that perseverance, tenacity, strength, stick to it, and it comes from in the work that you do? Because quite often, the people that I bring on, they've written these great books, they traveled all over the country. We hear all about the great things that they do. They have all these degrees, but where did your perseverance, courage, and tenacity come from to allow you to push through like the obstacles of starting a new business?
Yeah, I mean, that's first, I would say I've got a lot of people that are there are a few naysayers out there, but I've got so many supportive people that there is nothing that I've ever achieved in my career that wasn't due to someone else helping me or giving me advice, or I have lots of people I consider mentors and everything like that. I would even say it goes way, way back to, my father started his own company when I was 4 years old. So I don't actually, to me, being an entrepreneur is normal. A lot of people are like, how in the world can you strike out on your own? To me, I don't actually know anything different. I grew up with that. And, along those lines, my family always support. I was never told that I probably couldn't do something. And so I never believed that I couldn't. I've failed plenty of times in many, many things, but I never truly believed that I couldn't do something. And again, sometimes I've been proven wrong, but more often I've learned a lot and done it again or tried again and done better. So I think it's just in a way, I'm an optimist in that sense.
I love it, man. So Greg, how will the workplace change over the next decade, and how can companies prepare for it? We're seeing a shift in everything. My good friend, Dr. Jeff Robinson, who runs the Social Entrepreneurship Center at the Great Rutgers in New Jersey, he said to me when I interviewed him right when the pandemic sort of just manifested itself all around the globe, Jeff says, I'm really excited about, not about the deaths and things of that nature, but I'm excited and encouraged about the businesses that will be created during this pandemic. So how will the workplace change over the next decade, and how can companies prepare for it?
Yeah, I mean, I think just to go back a few years to the person you just mentioned, totally agree with that sentiment. I mean, I think, talking about 2008, 2009 again, what we saw come out of that, we saw a lot of other things come out of this, but one big thing that we saw come out of that was within a few years, we have Uber and Lyft and Instacart, and the gig economy, in and of itself was really created. There was always freelancers and people doing odd jobs and things like that, and that's been on the increase. I mean, it was estimated pre-COVID, the freelance workforce it was going to be about 50% of the U.S. workforce by 2027. I believe that number, because of COVID, is going to increase even, but. I think what we're going to see out of this is just like a lot of those gig jobs really increased and platforms and everything increased, about 10 years ago. I think we're seeing a lot more highly skilled jobs and, knowledge workers, more of those types of work are going to convert into freelance contract, those types of work. And I mean, that's, I've staked my business on that premise, but I think it makes a lot of sense because companies need to be more flexible. I mean, who knows when wave 2, 3, 4 of COVID is going to come around, let alone the next pandemic, the next ecological crisis, like you name it. I mean, we're going through many things on many different fronts right now, and it doesn't seem to going to stop anytime soon. So companies need to be more risk averse, but at the same time, people are now used to working remotely. They're comfortable. A lot of people don't want to go back to work. Some companies, like Twitter, for instance, said nobody ever has to.
Nobody has to come back. I'm like, could you imagine that? Going into this, I'm sure some people miss out on that great food that I heard that they had at Twitter and the games and all of that stuff. But I was blown away too. And you think about a company like Twitter, this technology, did you really need to come into the space at all anyway?
Right. Yeah, and you think about it, I mean, I've been to plenty of those, those large like tech campuses, and they've got the full spread every day for lunch and whatever, like they keep people on with all these perks. And think about some head of operations or CFO at these companies saying, oh my God, now all of a sudden we don't have to spend all that money on facilities costs and buying everyone lunch and all that stuff. Like they're going to save money hand over fist. But at the same time, the employees get the freedom that, I mean, there are so many statistics out there that show how just allowing a little more remote work increases the ability to have a more diverse workplace, whether you're talking about single parents, people taking care of spouses, partners, parents, all sorts of things where there's all kinds of opportunities. People that can't afford to live, I mean, going back to the tech company example, people that can't afford to live in San Francisco or Palo Alto or whatever, they either commute 3 hours to work or they can't even get a job at places like that. So, I mean, it's really expanding the workforce to such a more diverse group of people. So I think there's so many things, so many opportunities here to be able to do that. So, I'm excited about that about companies being able to embrace that. And again, there's a lot that are struggling right now because they didn't have the culture in place to really be able to allow that. But those that are thriving right now, I mean, man, they're going to get such a leg up on their competitors.
So with the recent shifts to do more remote work, what should companies and individuals do to adapt to what's taking place? I mean, not even just Fortune 500 companies. I'm in the education space. I'm working with teachers. I'm working with nonprofits. I'm working with museums. What are some things that they should do to prepare for this new, I hate to call it, it's crazy, man. I hate to call it the new normal. Like I'm trying not to call it the new normal because there's nothing normal about this. But what are some things that companies should do to adapt to this space? And let's remove the companies. Let's talk about individuals. What should individuals start to do to adapt to this new form of remote work or remote learning or remote teaching?
Well, I mean, first, if your intention is to stay in full-time salaried positions, you've got to be better at being able to work remote or having a very flexible schedule. Because again, who knows when, there's wildfires, there's hurricanes, there's pandemics, you name it. It's like there's a lot going on these days. And so those of us, I mean, I've been working from home on and off my entire career. I have some pretty good time management skills and I don't get distracted by things at home and all that stuff. A lot of people are struggling. A lot of people have kids. They're kids in school. It's like, I don't have kids, so I can't even imagine what some parents are going through, doing the very best they can. But, getting a handle on being able to work effectively and dealing with all of those things, it's going to be a given that you have to be able to do that. The people that are able to do that successfully are going to be more successful at work. And then I think those that are, I would say, fed up with working for full-time, working in a full-time job and getting furloughed, laid off, and, last in, first out, like all of these kinds of things that are going on, they need to start considering that a full-time employment is not necessarily the most stable type of thing. Like we've been taught, I mean, again, I grew up with a dad that, he started a company, self-employment was like normal to me, but everybody has been taught, myself included, watching movies, TV, whatever, that you get a company job and you like retire with a gold watch and a pension.
Those days are long. My grandfather worked for like Reynolds, I believe. And I remember the Reynolds family picnic or cookout or, something like those things don't even exist anymore, man. It's interesting to say that. So then how can someone make a shift from being a freelancer to being a business owner?
Yeah, I think there's certain skills that you need to understand and learn, and there's certain things that you need to do to take care of yourself. And I think, I started freelancing when I was in my early 20s. So I worked for a tech startup back in 2001. So talk about another financial crisis. So, I was in a tech startup back in the early internet boom. We were one of those companies that grew really quickly, ran out of money. And then, I was basically out looking for a job. I got laid off. And so I made the decision to freelance, but I was scared to death because by nature, I've done this a lot more and I've gotten a lot better at it, but by nature I'm introverted and I'm not like the typical salesperson that, can sell anything to anybody. So I had to learn a new set of skills. I was good at what I did, a designer and, knew about marketing and stuff like that, but I had to learn a whole new set of skills of not only do I have to be good at what I do, but I also have to sell my skills and convince people to pay me for them. So it's sort of, that's one of those things where it was a lot harder 20 years ago to do that. Now, I mean, my own company, CareerGig included, there's a lot of ways that people can find jobs and opportunities online. You don't have to cold call people. You don't have to do a lot of those things. It sure helps to have a good network. And, back, before COVID, we could attend events and meet people, face to face and all those kinds of things. That made things a lot easier. But building a network was always, it's always a good idea to have a good network of people that you can rely on, whether you're looking for full-time or contract work. But I think, these days it's being able to have control over your own destiny to an extent of like, I can work as much or as little as I want, as long as I have the opportunities available to me. And I think that's where that's where, there needs to be better, places for people to find work. CareerGig is one of those things that we're building to be able to do that. But the other thing that we do, which is something that's really important, is to be able to provide the financial security and benefits to people that, that you kind of take them for granted. When you have a full-time salary position, a lot of times, health insurance, life insurance, disability, like all of those things they're kind of taken care of to an extent. Not all the time are they 100% paid for, but a lot of times they're taken care of in one way or the other. And, there's guaranteed issue insurance and all that. And, the Affordable Care Act helped a lot of people get access to health insurance. I mean, the United States is just a mess when it comes to healthcare in general, but at least ACA helped a lot of people get access. But there are some flaws. It's not no one will say it's a perfect thing. And so, CareerGig, we offer discounted insurance, including health insurance, but also life insurance, disability, all those things that are not covered at all by ACA, and that, again, are offered oftentimes with salaried positions, but you lose those as soon as you're furloughed, laid off, all of those kinds of things. So we're taking care of not only finding and enabling people to get work, but we're also enabling people to take care of their health and retirement and all of those kinds of things. And I think those two come together.
Yeah, great point. So you mentioned sort of freelance work and certain gigs that people take, and do. So do you believe that the gig economy is here to stay? And if so, what do both companies and consumers need to know about the gig economy?
Yeah, I absolutely believe it's here to stay, and it's only going to grow, and I think it's only going to expand in the kinds of professions that use it. I mean, I think, traditionally, technology, like, software engineers and things like that's been, there's been anything that is project-based work is really, really, something that's easy to do on a contract basis and stuff like that, because you don't need a full-time person if there's a 6-month gig and then it's over. Similar to, Lyft and Uber, you don't need a full-time driver, you just need someone to get you, 10 miles from here to there. So same thing kind of applies only on a slightly larger scale. But what we're seeing is, in healthcare, in all kinds of professional services, even doctors, this concept of contract work is becoming more and more prevalent because things are more and more, let's just say, less dependable, and more they fluctuate with the economy, with needs, with geographic, distance, all of those kinds of things. So I think it's here to stay, and I think it's a way for companies to be able to be flexible and save money when they need to, and it's a way for the employees and the contractors in this case to be able to either take on more or less, or take on as much or as little as they want or need to, and again find flexible schedules for themselves to be able to take care of those other things in their lives, which they often forgo because they've got a 9-to-5 or whatever their schedule is job. And they've got to find, childcare in that case. They've got to find, all of those things that you work around everything to have that job. Well, why does it have to be that way if you can get your work done when you can't, when you need to, and take care of the rest of your life? So I think this work-life integration, it's not even balance, it's like work-life integration where they're both working together. It's a win-win for both parties. I think that's the future. And again, the companies that embrace that they're going to have happier employees that stay longer.
So let's talk about happy employees. Do you believe that employee engagement only matter in high-tech industries like restaurants, or does it matter in all industries? Because I know in your work, you talk about engagement. How do we best engage not only our employees, but then also our customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the premise of my latest book, The Center of Experience, is really, I use the term brand experience to say, slight tangent, but, I come from a marketing background, and, I spent a lot of time marketing things and making things sound as good as possible, and designing nice logos and product packaging and websites and all those kinds of things. And so, my let's call it disenchantment with marketing was, I spent all this time making these things sound really good, but I have no control over the experience that customers have. So, if the customer has a terrible experience, it doesn't matter how nice the logo is or how nice the tagline is or the advertisements or whatever, they're not going to buy it again. They're not going to recommend it to people. Taking that a step deeper, if the employee is delivering that service or product or coming up with the product or service in the first place are unhappy, are unengaged, or just don't align with the values of the company, it's this chain of, the employees aren't happy, and so they make a substandard product or don't deliver it well. The customers are unhappy, so they don't buy again. It's this trickle down, and it starts at leadership, really, at the end of the day, of defining the values of the organization, making sure the values actually matter and stand for something. So I know, okay, I work for this organization. This is what they stand for. Do I or do I not align? Values aren't a good or bad thing in that sense. It's just, is that something that I can really get behind and align with? And if that happens, then those employees are going to be more engaged. I mean, there's a lot more to it. And, I think the companies that we see that have really engaged employees and really happy customers, it's not just, oh, wow, company A, they must have lucked into it or fallen into, a great culture or whatever. It takes intention, and it takes, repeatable processes. And I spend a lot, actually my book is based on the premise of, there's so many books written about how nice it is to have good customer experience and employee experience. And, those are great books, and there's a lot of great stats in that. I didn't want to write another one of those because I feel like that subject has been done to death, so to speak. But what I wanted to do was write something about, okay, well, given that premise, which I totally support and agree with, how would I actually operationalize this, and how would I start to think about this in even a small to a very large organization? And so that's why I try to lay out the blueprint for processes or ways to measure and all this, because I think everyone gets it. Like, nobody wants to have a bad customer experience or employee experience. They just don't really know what to do about it and how to be able to make a repeatable process to enable that.
So then, Greg, what are some of the strategies for companies to reduce employee disengagement? What are some things in your book that you outlined that are actually working, and what are some things that are working with some of the companies that you've actually worked with in the past?
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the frameworks that I use in the book is a way to measure company culture, and so it's based on a very longstanding methodology. It's called the competing values framework, and so I didn't invent that by any means. A couple PhDs from University of Michigan 20, 30 years ago came up with this framework. It's been developed over decades. But I really like it, and I took it a little bit further in the book. But the premise, again, is that there's different types of cultures in a company, often at odds with one another. So, there's the idea of the camaraderie and teamwork. There's the innovation and creativity. There's the market sales driven, and there's the organizational and hierarchical. And so none of those things are bad. You need all of them in an organization, but different organizations need those at different points in time. To take that a step further, and so you map that out in like a spider diagram thing of like, okay, well, it's a quadrant type thing where, okay, we're way off the charts creatively, but we need to do a lot of work to get our organization and processes in place, because it's great that we're creative, but we'll never be able to repeat that and do it again, for instance. So, based on that premise, what I lay out in the book is, okay, well, we need to understand what leadership needs in order to be successful. We need to understand what employees want in their own work, and we need to understand what is currently being experienced. And so if we triangulate those three things, leaders, we have to assume they know what the organization needs to be successful. We need employees that are aligned with the values. And if everybody needs to sell because we got to grow in order to surpass our competitors, we need a bunch of people that are on board with that, and not just a bunch of people that want to be creative and come up with new ideas. We gotta align along those cultures. And then what is actually being experienced? Maybe it's something completely different. So to align those things means to be truly successful. And so we've run that scenario a few times, and it's fascinating to see by generation, by level in the company, by all of these things, how it differs, how it aligns, and all that. And to work with companies to be able to align that, it gives you a vocabulary to be able to say, okay, you're here right now. This is where you need to get to. These are the people that are partway there. They're the people you really want to be on your team. These people are way off the deep end. Can we either get them to align with us because they understand and are aligned with our values, or is it just not a good fit right now for where we need to be? And so I think that's, that's but one example of how you can really, and then those people that are aligned, they're engaged.
How often, Greg, do you feel that an organization should either revamp, redo, discuss, engage employees around the mission and vision of an organization? Because there have been many times I've walked into a space and the mission and vision is right on the wall, right in front of everyone to see. And I've talked to maybe 8 out of 10 people don't know what the mission and vision is and the purpose of the organization. How often should that conversation come up? And, when should that maybe mission and vision change based on the culture of the organization shifting and the culture of the world that the organization is attempting to provide services for?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And it's one of those things where I don't think that the overall mission of an organization, like if the overall mission of an organization changes, it means that something fundamental has changed in the industry or in the world itself. And I think, I think that the reason why people don't understand what the mission and vision of the organization is that it's not actually made real, in what goes on a day-to-day basis. So in other words, it's kind of a value thing too. If your company has a certain set of values and in every meeting, in every goal, in every strategy, there isn't something that ties back to mission, vision, values, then they're really just words on a wall. And, I'll be the first to say I had a company and we wrote our values on the wall. And I often wonder, in retrospect, this was a decade ago now, in retrospect, I'm like, man, some days those really just were words on the wall. And I'll be the first to say that. And some days we were true to those and we lived them. But there were so many times where it was just like, wow, well, it says that on the wall there, but I'm doing this complete opposite thing. What is going on? So I think when they are just words like that, it's, there's something going on that the leaders are just not living, and it's gotta come top down. The leaders have to live that. And
so the reason why I brought that up, I just watched the documentary Social Experiment. I don't know if you checked it out on Netflix, man. Just blew me away. And maybe one of the early either founders of either Facebook, Instagram, one of the social media giants out there wrote a letter to the investors, advisors, and also to the other employees. And he outlined his concerns for the organization, that in the beginning we started out with this, but now that I have children and now that my children have friends, and the mission and vision of where it was supposed to be sort of shifted. And because of that, he was really, really concerned about where the company was actually going. And he no longer wanted to be connected to it. And it's not to throw any of the social media platforms under the bus, because we're using one now. But, as I thought about that, watching that, and I knew we were going to have you on, it really, really made me think about, quite often we start these businesses, these organizations, these companies, these for-profits, nonprofits with this one goal in mind. And then it goes into a different direction and it becomes something else. Something else. And so that's why I sort of asked that question about the mission and vision and sort of where do we go? Because when he sent this letter out, he like he said, to his surprise, so many people had agreed. But Greg, my concern was nobody else spoke up about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think there's a lot. There's a lot in that. I mean, I think some of this has to do with, as soon as you have shareholders involved in a company, and again, I'm not anti-corporation, like there's plenty of good that can be done, but at the same time, as soon as you are beholden to a group of people that are really looking solely at financial growth of an organization, your priorities are going to change, and your values they're not going to be compromised necessarily, but that there's something that's on the table to be compromised in order to achieve those goals. I would say another thing, another danger, and I think there's a lot of good people in the startup community and startup world that are thinking about these problems, but there is this idea of, continual pivoting and growth and grow by any means and all these kinds of things. And so, you kind of get caught up in your idea and forget to lose, I think all of the tech companies and they started with some grain of, they wanted to do something good or solve a really good problem, and some of them still do that, but they get caught up in, okay, well, now we're going to expand into this, and now we're going to keep growing it for growth's sake, and all those kinds of things. And I think they do lose sight of, Google started with "Don't be evil." That was their thing, and it's like, I'm not going to go on this podcast and say Google is evil, but I often wonder, are there less evil things that could be done, sometimes, and and maybe more beneficial ways of doing things that, that take the individuals into account and all those kinds of things. And so I think it's a systemic issue in the technology world is certainly one. I think it's an easy one because we all have such a close connection with these companies. I think there are definitely other industries where it is also systemic but hidden. There's other industries that exploit a lot of things that we just don't see and we don't interact every day with, and yet they're probably they're probably just as harmful in other ways. And I think again it goes back to the accountability and the metrics of success. If you measure something by solely a financial metric, then sure enough, people are gonna. If you give someone a game, they're gonna play it, right? And I think that's maybe the easiest way to say it.
So, someone is interested in working, participating, being a part of CareerGig. What are some things that they should expect working with your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So, freelancers that sign up, first of all, it's free to sign up, so easy to explore and find things. What we're doing is we are building a platform that, again, not only provides jobs and benefits to freelancers like I was talking about earlier, but also we are really endeavoring to make the most trusted and verified platform that talks about someone's work history and what they've really done. So, we're taking it very seriously when someone claims that they have a skill, for instance, and, there's other platforms out there, I won't name names, but basically lots of people that I've never met before have like endorsed me for a skill, and they don't know me. I appreciate, I like being endorsed for things and whatever, but it's like, I don't know them. Like, cool that they think I'm good at something that I've never worked with them, but how do they actually know that? And therefore, what does that actually mean for, anyone that's been endorsed for 800 times for X skill? Like, who really cares? And, then there's other platforms that, that have like 5-star rating systems and things like that. And, we all know, like, if you have a 3-star on your account, you can just shut down your profile and start a new one. And so what does it really mean to have a high rating? And so we're taking a lot of effort to do verified work histories and, really have third parties verify what people are saying. And so therefore, companies that go into the platform can say, you know what, I need someone with these exact skills, with this background, all of those kinds of things. And I can actually trust that who I'm hiring has done what they said they can do. They are who they say they are, all those types of things. And then sure enough, all of those other benefits are there to boot. And I don't think that there's a platform like that. There are platforms that do some of what we do, but there's no platform that does all of that.
So what do you do, Greg, when you find out that somebody is a charlatan? He or she basically just lied throughout his information he submitted to the platform. What do you do to that person, with that person? What happens?
Yeah, sure. So it's a very public and open way of demonstrating trust. So in other words, we have 3 levels of what we call certification on our platform. So we're calling it our reputation platform. So level 1 is I can claim something, and so that is literally just me saying, hey, you know what, I know PHP, and challenge me on that, I guess. But it's like I'm saying I know PHP, so that's great. So I'm claiming that. So the next level of that is confirming. And so that is someone saying, yes, Greg worked for me and he wrote PHP code and he's good. So that's good. The challenge with that is, I can look at and see that person and they look reputable and all of that. But, that is still someone that I know. It's like when you send your resume to someone with a bunch of references, who do you give as references? They're the people that like you and the people that you did a good job for and whatever. So it's still, it's peer verified. And so that's good. But the third level is certifying. So, it's actually saying, okay, well, Greg says he knows PHP. His former boss can vouch for him as well, but maybe his boss really liked him and whatever. Let's give him a skills assessment and see how he actually, knows, how well he knows it. And so that's that third level. Or, if I'm a nurse in the state of Florida and where's my accreditation? So we're able to actually do things like that. Like, are you a certified nurse? Are you accredited to work in the state of Florida? If you're looking for a federal job, do you have top security clearance? We can verify that through third parties, and therefore someone gets a badge on their profile and they can actually say, a company can actually say, okay, this person checks out because not just them and their friends are saying it about them, but these reputable third parties are doing it. And so it's very transparent on the platform, where if I just claim that I have something, if I look trustworthy, I guess you can take me at my word, but really we're providing an option for everyone to really back up what they say they can do.
So for those of you that are out there listening right now, you're like, I can go to CareerGig and try to get over on Greg Kihlström. You don't know what you're up against. So, beware, you charlatans that are out there. But folks who have great skills, check Greg out. Man, Greg, thanks for joining me today, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you today, man. I've learned quite a bit about your organization and also just about you and how you got started. And I love to hear these entrepreneurial stories of how, I'm an entrepreneur just like you are. We all have these great stories. And I think stories are very, very valuable. And a lot of times we always talk about the good part, and you shared some of the most challenging parts. So how can our listeners get in contact with you, and how can they get a copy of your book?
Yeah, absolutely. So, three things. So one, definitely check out careergig.com. Free to sign up and explore and things like that. To get in touch with me personally, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So, please just mention that you heard me on this podcast, and would be more than happy to message with you and connect. To find my books, you can go to gregkihlström.com, or they're also available on Amazon. You can search for me and see my books there.
All right, Greg, this is the second part of the show. It's my favorite part of the show. It's called the Super Bomb Questions, and I get a chance to ask you some questions that my listeners typically send in, and they want to know from all of these outstanding people that I bring into the studio. And so, are you ready?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, so here we go. Answer them as quickly as possible. What is your favorite word?
Wow, sorry, I wasn't ready for that one. Wow. Oh, wow. Yes.
Yes. Good word. Yes. What is your favorite quote? A quote that you sort of live by?
Yeah. I don't know who to attribute it to, but I often say this: just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Mm. What's your spirit animal?
A wolf.
What's your superpower?
Wow. Multitasking.
What brings you to tears of joy?
Doing something new that helps people.
What brings you to tears of sorrow?
Missed opportunities.
What do you wish you had more time to do?
Write.
Speaking of writing, what is the book or books that you've given most as a gift, and why?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say probably my own, but that's not.
Hey, that's a great one, man. Great one. What's the best investment, or what is the best or worthwhile investment you've ever made? It could be money, it could be time. Best investment you've ever made?
Yeah, I think actually serving as a mentor to college students, I believe very strongly in that.
Wow, I love that. If you were in the Mr. America talent competition, Greg, what would your talent be?
Oh, wow. Piano.
Piano. There we go. So Greg Kihlström, we want to thank you for joining me in the BalmShelter. It has been a pleasure engaging with you, talking with you, discussing with you about the great things that you're doing. Go out, pick up his book, go to his website. But listen, if you don't have any skills, don't put that down because we're going to come and find you. But if you do have some skills, there's a great place for you to share those skills and be a freelancer. So Greg, thanks for joining me today, man.
Oh, thanks so much. It was great to talk with you.
And I also want to thank my amazing engineer, Alexander Blanc, my super duper producer, Nicole Klempaka, for doing all the research, my music artist, Supremacy, for our theme music, and all of you for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the show. We're on every platform. Leave us a comment. Do you hear me? Leave us a comment. Go out and do something for someone other than yourself today, and always believe that something wonderful is about to happen. That some people miss the message because they're too busy looking for the mess. Thanks for tuning in to Sound Bombing, and have a great day. Thanks a lot, Greg. Talk to you later.